Hello, this is Frank Casey. Today, I'd like to address a little area of cybersecurity called micro token exchange technology. It's a brand new technology. There aren't many players in the field, at least none as advanced as I'm about to present to you today. Eclypses, spelt with a Eclypses, is a firm I met about 3 years ago. The chief scientist is David Schoenberger. And he has a very unique background. He was a developer of gateway processing systems, how banks move money to the merchants when you go to buy something for 30 some years prior. And so he understood technology very well. And he was called upon to work on a committee by the Federal Reserve in 2001, after 9/11 2001. You see, all the checks were sitting in duffel bags in the bellies of planes that weren't going anywhere. So checks weren't being cleared, and the Federal Reserve had a problem. And he came up with the electronic clearing system for the Federal Reserve, where checks were sent electronically and verified on the images. And it's called Check 21. It's still in use today. And then he began getting calls from various companies that said, hey, we've got data we'd like to protect. Can you protect this company data and that piece of data and that piece of data? And he realized that he needed to come up with technology that would be very, very fast so there wasn't any delay, or as we say, latency. Because latency will really slow things down for real-time analysis. He began working with the Department of Defense on trying to find ways of protecting information moving from a controller through a satellite to a remotely controlled drone, maybe in Afghanistan or wherever. And the trouble is that if you send data from a control joystick through a satellite to the drone to make a turn to the right 2.5 degrees, let's say, and it reports back, okay, boss, I did that, what's next? That circuit of send, command, execute, and confirmation is 2.5 milliseconds in raw data, faster than a blink of an eye. Now, if you put on the most basic form of encryption, it slows things down to 50 milliseconds from 2.5. You can't fly by wire. That drone's moving at 80, 100 miles an hour or whatever. You can't keep up with it. And so he had to find a way of securing the data and yet making it very, very quick. He came up with micro token exchange technology. It moved it from 2.5 to 3.0 milliseconds. Anything under 5 milliseconds is considered real time by the Department of Defense. When I met these guys about 3 years ago, I said, wow, who's building your commercial applications? They said, no one yet. So I formed a partnership with Paula Moats called Casey Moats, and we started making phone calls. Nobody understood what we were talking about. And maybe we weren't explaining it properly, but it seemed very complex to most people, so far advanced and very improbable. What do you mean it's basically unhackable? I said, oh, they can hack it, but all you're going to get is a useless piece of token that doesn't carry any information. It means something, but it doesn't carry information. It's not encryption. And it evaporates after 5 milliseconds. So, I mean, even if you capture it, it's gone before you know what you had. So they said, it sounds too complex. Well, we finally got our first commercial application contract with an OEM building smart city applications. That's where, you get 400, 500, 600 cameras sitting on top of light post and filming traffic and changing the light signals. And you want that information to be submitted back for analysis using artificial intelligence, a real-time basis. And you don't want to slow it down, but it has to be totally protected so that no one gets into the man in the middle argument where they basically interject themselves into that whole process as a hacker and maybe even penetrate your complete operating systems elsewhere. Stop and think about natural gas pipelines and electrical power grids and things that are moving assets across and need to be controlled remotely. That's where the power comes in on this thing. So anything in the Internet of Things where a device is talking to another device, whether it's your pacemaker in your body regulating your heart, That's hackable. Somebody gets the code from Boston Scientific, and they can kill you if you're worth it to them. So you have to basically find a way to protect all that data without encryption. It's augmented onto encryption. Now, for the layperson out there, and I'm one, I'm not a technical guy. I'm a derivatives geek. I mean, I spent 45 years in hedging corporate risk and bank risk and interest rates and using options on futures and futures contracts. I don't come from this world of technology. So here's my dumbed down version. Firewalls are nothing more than ramparts to a castle or a fortress. You build bigger ramparts, somebody comes up with a bigger siege engine. They get over your walls. Now, you have to have walls, firewalls, a basic form of prevention for less sophisticated troublemakers. But then you have encryption. Now, encryption is a rhythmic language. It basically is repeatable. And so if you're spelling a word out, the encrypted form of that word doesn't change over time, and it becomes rhythmic. The packets are not even sized when they're sent. So you can download this thing, get yourself a million or a billion systems running it simultaneously in quantum computing and artificial intelligence and break that code. And encryption is slow. So what we do instead is we replace the data using algorithms that produce matched libraries for the application. So let's say I'm using a handheld phone, mobile app, and I want to say hello. The matched phones, and they download them on the internet through a mobile application, an API, and you're using this mobile app. It's called Security X or whatever you want to call it, and it produces a language. And that language is a library of replaceable data. So, and that lasts 5 milliseconds. So H is one thing. I send it across when I type it, alphanumeric. And the only thing that travels is not the H or the piece of data. It's a micro token buried in chaff, so that the micro token is buried in a same size packet. Every packet looks the same, and you don't know what a micro token is and what's the junk. But if you do happen to extract the micro token out, it's got a life of 5 milliseconds and it's gone. So the H is recognized, that token is sent across. The receiving phone says, oh, packet of information, micro token, oh, that means H. Takes it from its library and types it in. H-E-L. Now on the second L, it's a different micro token because they evaporate. So it's a new library every time you do this. You generate hundreds of thousands of tokens, micro tokens, and as soon as one's used, they evaporate. You generate another 100,000, let's say, and it evaporates. If nothing's used, 5 milliseconds, they evaporate, and then you regenerate again. So you cannot hack it. Well, you can hack it, but you can't do anything with it. So the DoD has hired, or had us hire, thousands and thousands of man hours, not at Casey Motes, but at Eclypses, for white hat hackers to try to penetrate from the outside. And also we have to bring them in, and they have to be able to access our data from the inside and get it out. They haven't been able to do either. So this is a very powerful technology. Now, what's the application? I took a quick look. There are close to 5 billion smartphones and tablets around the world. There are probably, these smartphones and tablets are running billions of applications or mobile apps. These smartphones and tablets, 90% of their use are on mobile apps. And so Apple and Google have each about 2.5 million applications to be downloaded. And one phone company alone had over 100 million mobile apps users on their system. And so this whole thing is generating about $1.5 billion in revenues in mobile app land yearly. And this has to be protected. Here's the real risk from a lay point of view. what we call man in the middle. Somebody gets into the system when it's moving from data, even to a blockchain. You know, a blockchain itself is secure because it's dispersed reservoirs of information across many, many computers. But when you're accessing the blockchain and taking money information out or putting information on, that's where you're susceptible between your computer and the blockchain. So all of these things need some form of protection that's fast and can be analyzed instantly. Now, the man in the middle can happen several different ways. Somebody could just hack your phone or your and get in the middle, or you may have a jailbroken or rooted device. Now, what that means to me is jailbroken, I think, is Apple's iOS system, and rooted is for Microsoft's MOS systems. But what it is basically is you want your phone to be able to use different apps from different players and not be stuck with Apple's apps and increase it. You want to increase it to Microsoft or other libraries of apps. So you jailbreak it or root it. Now, once it's jailbroken or rooted, your defenses have been dropped. Somebody can come in to an application that's on a phone or a tablet that's been jailbroken or rooted, and they can sneak in to the application itself on the server and cause havoc. So we can identify through micro token exchange technology who's on the circuit that has jailbroken or rooted technology. And we can just basically deny them, and they'll get an error message, call your administrator, you have a jailbroken phone, or some such. It will not allow the application to work or interface with that user. So this is one way to protect all of this information. So we have had some success dealing with an OEM, original equipment manufacturer, that's building a software stack to build smart cities. And smart cities are basically, okay, 400 or 500 cameras in a city sitting on top of a light post. And like I said, and you want to analyze this stuff in real time. You could also use it, of course, for any form of facial recognition, intelligence work, and so forth, whatever's permitted in the environment. But micro token exchange, and I've been around derivatives 45 years. It started in 1974 for me, and that's when many of the markets first started moving into derivatives. If I was a young person going into cybersecurity today or technology in general, the derivatives of yesteryear are the micro token exchange technologies of today. If you have any questions or thoughts, comments, Frank at KCCASEY Moats, MOATS.com. Thank you very much.